Hi, and welcome to the Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast presented by Wolf Precision Incorporated, where we learn about and share long range shooting and custom rifle building. I am your host, Jamie Dotson, and welcome to the show. Hi, and welcome to episode 82 of Wolf Precision's Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast. My name is Jamie Dotson, and welcome to the show. In this episode, we're going to talk about taking and doing it now. The art of putting things off, and what we need more now than anything is time with these young kids as they're growing up, as these young men as they're coming of age. And just I want to share with you some experiences that we had over the last couple schools with just spending time together as families, doing things that we love, and some of the experiences that we've had and got to watch here. So it's going to be a little bit different of a podcast, and it's a long-range shooting and custom rifle building podcast for sure. But in what we do in our industry and the connections and bonds that it makes is just absolutely amazing, and you have to do it now. So without further ado, here we go. All right, so I want to take time to thank Krieger Barrels. Krieger is a maker of fine-cut rifle barrels. They're a sponsor of the show here. They also have their KriegerDirect.com where you can go and purchase your barrel and have it delivered right away. So if you want a great quality barrel made by some of the best in the industry and you want it now, stop over to KriegerDirect.com. That's KriegerDirect.com, or place your custom order today. We also want to take a moment to thank MDT. MDT Chassis is another proud sponsor of the show. They have sent us multiple stocks that we have now on our stock wall for customers to come in and touch and feel and get a chance to check out. And we have more on the way. So we're excited and glad to have them as a partner and an advertiser here on the show. Make a great quality product and a great member of the team. So thank you, MDT. So stop over to mdttac.com and see what's going on over there today. All right, so on this podcast, I want to talk about something a little bit different. And, this is coming from someone who's 50 years old. And I got to say, I have been moved a lot over the last, couple months with some of the classes that we've had come through. And, I get to look at it from a different perspective as an instructor. Then I get to watch father and son teams come in, father-daughter teams come in. And, the same thing happens on hunting trips. The same thing happens when you go to the range, or sometimes even the same thing happens if you go out and hunt for the day. But I just want to share with you, for us that are in the industry as well as for us that enjoy this sport, that this doesn't just apply to our sport. I think this is where a lot of other hobbies and things that we get into really give us a chance to just slow down and bond and take time. These memories will last a lifetime and sometimes can, really influence the next generation, exposing them to different things and getting to know them. Yeah. One of the things that I think, and just to give you a little bit of backstory about where this podcast is coming from, is we had several father-son teams come through this year already. And in one or two of the cases, I don't believe that they actually live together. So I don't ask and I don't prod. Let's just face it, that there's a lot of broken families or families that have moved on, and you're not in that relationship on a full-time basis, or the families have split. And the power of just spending 3 days doing something. Now, here they're doing a shooting school together, which in my mind is just for these young men and women that are coming through and spending just 3 uninterrupted days. So they just have days of having your attention and getting to spend time with you. And you're creating this relationship, but you're doing something together. And for example, we've had several father-son teams come in that have never really shot long range before. And I thought, as busy as our world has become and as crazy as it has become, and how hard it's become to spend time with all of these different people that are important in our lives, these are really precious moments. And for them to get 3 days of just you, they're at the range, talking and joking, uninterrupted, no cell phones, of course, because we're shooting, so you can't be checking emails. You're not sitting at home watching TV, but you're actually doing something. And when you leave, you get to talk about the experience. And, oh my gosh, did you see that shot on, for example, when we were shooting the long stuff, you could just hear the chatter as they were leaving. They were on cloud nine. I mean, for me, it was as close as a relationship could possibly get, of just all the barriers were down, and three people who love each other just leaving the firing line, pouring their hearts out about, oh my gosh, that was awesome. Did you see that? Oh my God, did you see this? That was a great shot. Hey, you missed that when I saw that. Leaving that, when they left the firing line, of course, when everybody leaves, I'm there by myself cleaning up and doing some little stuff. And, I think about this stuff and I'm like, gosh, that experience those kids will remember for the rest of their lives. And I think the same thing happens on hunting trips. And, I just want to encourage you to, whether it's hunting or fishing or boating, and we'll talk about that here in just a minute, but regardless of what really you're into or what you would like to do, like one of the reasons when I got into hunting as a kid was I got to go spend a couple days with my dad uninterrupted. Like we sat on a stump side by side for 8 hours, freezing our tails off. But we walked through snow and got to complain about how cold our toes were. And we get to drag a deer out. Those moments are precious. And I think now more than ever, like the kids don't go out and change the oil in the cars with their dads anymore. The kids don't go out, and it's not common. And I just want to share with you that here at the shooting school, I get to see this. And I really hope, we've had some father-daughter teams come through, and they had an absolute blast. You could tell that in both of their lives that this really meant something, that this was one of those points to where when they leave, that this was a bonding moment, that they got to spend 3 days uninterrupted, just having the time of their lives and sharing a great experience and none of the distractions that happen in real life. And I think the same thing happens in hunting scenarios. So when you go on a hunting trip for a couple of days somewhere, you get the anticipation of all the prep work, getting ready to go on the hunt, the range time, packing up all of your gear, selecting all the stuff that you're going to take. Then you've got either the flight out or the road trip out, which in itself can be very exciting, and talking about it. And boy, you got your hopes and dreams up and you hope it turns out to be something great and all these anticipations about what it's going to be like when you get there. And then you get there and you spend 2 or 3 days in all these weird scenarios of where things go right and sometimes they don't go right. You fall into a stream, crossing a river. You overcome obstacles that just seem like, oh my gosh, we're never going to be able to drag this thing to the top of there. And somehow you do it. You get to weather out the rain. Miserable. I mean, the guy that says you ain't training, and if it ain't raining, I never really liked that guy, because I personally don't think he spent enough time soaked to the bone in the rain day after day. I don't enjoy that, and I don't think it's a qualifier for anything other than it's just miserable. But at the end of the day, you're like, wow, that rain was horrible. Yeah, we were soaked to the bone. Could you imagine? So through it, yeah, you're suffering a little bit, and sometimes it sort of sucks a little, but it's about making these cool memories. The four-wheeler breaks down, or the flat tire rolls down the hill and you got to go chase it. These things happen, and in some cases it's funny, in some cases it really stinks, but in the end, it's all about the experience when you go home and the stories that they'll remember. One of the things that we liked to do when I was a kid was just go out, and even though we were terrible at it, we would fish and just sit there on the banks quietly. Sometimes we'd fish all night long, have a little fire going, and just spending time with friends and family and creating some cool memories. Same thing happens when my daughter was younger. I used to take her out groundhog hunting, and I used to have to bribe her with a Pennsylvania gob and some type of Coke or something. And some of the little old farm ladies would offer her a Coke if we stopped by the farmhouse. The guy was all excited every time we'd go out and we'd go varmint hunting. We'd stop by this particular farmhouse, and the lady that lived there would bring out like a homemade cookie or a piece of pie and a Coke for Gabby and make a big to-do about it. And it was really cool. But hopefully when Gabby gets older, she'll remember those times. That she'll remember, I built her a custom rifle with all these really cool pink colors through it, and she still has it. And now she's 21 this year. And so, college and all the other things in life have moved on, but her rifle still sits there. And hopefully she'll remember that, like, for example, I took her out. I felt terrible. I took her out hunting deer, and I shut her fingers. She was like 11 or 12 in the tailgate of, we had an FJ Cruiser. Didn't break her fingers or anything, and God, she toughed it out. I could see her eyes. She just swelled up, and, I felt so bad. I got her fingers stuck in there and got her fingers out. And then we found this little thing called lava buns. So some other hunter must have dropped it, but it's like this little seat you set on. And we both got a big laugh about it, lava buns. So we carried that around for 3 days and sat on it. And, that stuff makes memories. And I think that we're missing so many parts of that in our life. And, business and time spent doing all of these things that we're told that we have to do. When, if you step back and sometimes think about it, we still have a choice. And in a lot of our cases, we still have time. Not only do we have a choice, but we still have time. We can refuse to go to that meeting, or we can cancel. That trip that was just going there because somebody feels like you're obligated to. And I always remind Gabby, my daughter, that you have a choice in everything in life that you do, and you get to make those decisions just like everybody else does in life. That if there's a party coming up and you don't want to go, you don't have to go. And you don't owe anybody an excuse as to why you don't want to go or to why you can't be there. And that person has the same. If you invite that person to come and spend time with you, if you have a party and they can't make it, that is their freedom of choice. And they have other things that they would like to do, and they don't owe you an explanation for that. And I think in a lot of ways that we feel that there's these obligations amongst other things in life, whether it's work or family or friends, that you just have to be there because that person asked you to be. And so however you do it, find time to go out and spend, time doing these things with all of these really cool people that are in your life. Make these memories. Don't wait. And I think in the shooting industry, the coolest part is you can go to matches now where it's not just going to the local range. You could travel to a 2-day PRS style match and compete and have fun and get to meet all these really neat people from around the world. Like, for example, I got to meet a really close friend of mine who's almost like a father-like figure. His name's John Markwell, and I have super high respect for John, and I've learned so much from him as a shooter and as a friend, and he owns his own business and retired, and same way with other people in your life. And you meet these people through this sport. I would have never met John had I not gone to a couple matches that they host and develop a great relationship. I got a chance to introduce my wife. We were invited down to their 50th wedding anniversary, which was really awesome. I mean, it was, that they think of us as friends at that level. And then, same thing with your child. Like, you take them out and they get to meet these people that you shoot with or these people that you hunt with that have all these different backgrounds. Which, for example, we had a father-son team come through just this last class, and the son's going for engineering. And, he's just like, he's hooked into shooting. He's never shot long range before, totally fascinated now. And so he had asked if I would go and do some research to some people that I know in the industry that he could reach out to maybe go and do a job shadow or to intern to see if there's where maybe he could apply his schooling or his engineering and be part of this industry. How cool is that? And of course I'm going to do it. So his dad brought him here, introduced us. And, I can't guarantee him I can get him anywhere, but I know a fair amount of people. And so I made some phone calls this week. I'll be making a couple more through the week, and I'll be giving him a list of different people, of different corporations that he could reach out to and, ask if, hey, here's what I'm doing, here's what I'd like to do. But that came from this. His exposure to this, it might change his career for the rest of his life. He may go on and do something fantastic in the shooting industry, develop the next generation rifle or ammunition or powder or whatever. But the reason I'm saying all this and the reason I'm setting this podcast up is I see this a lot over the last 13, 14 years, I have seen a lot of father-son teams come through, and not just younger ones, but older ones where the son is in midlife. He's 40, 50 years old, and the dad's 60 or 70, and they're still coming through. And they're getting that moment together where, just 3 days of uninterrupted, no work, no cell phone, just spending time together. And that really been resonating with me this whole spring, is just how many of these people are coming through with family, with friends, with brothers, and just how special it is that they are actually coming and spending 3 days together doing something. Now, here they're coming through the long-range shooting school, and we're blessed, and we say thank you for them choosing to come here together and spending time together with us and what we love to do, but just doing it in anything, where you just get to spend that 8-10 hours together, where if you didn't come here and do that, you might not spend that time together over the next 6 months. And even when you spend that time together, you may be distracted by cell phones or people getting their Facebook messages or this ringing, or you're sitting and watching a football game, but you're spending time together, but you're not type deal. One of the things I like to do when Gabby was in her teen, we camped a lot. And that was a lot of fun because it really broke down a lot of the barriers. A lot of the places that we camped didn't have cell phone service. You were part of the experience of where you were camping and setting up camp and exploring on your bicycle. And like we went out to South Dakota and we camped at Uwharrie State Park, and we've been out there twice. And she got to ride her bicycle down to Lewis and Clark Trail, and we rode it the whole way into this Capitol and had pizza and, all these really cool things. She got to explore the area on her bicycle. There's bicycle paths everywhere, and got to see funny things when things don't work well, problem solving and getting lost or getting spun around, almost running out of gas, all these crazy things that you do. But the same thing with boating. Like when she was a teenager, we had a small boat. It's just for skiing, and it's just an open bow boat, but she loved it. She didn't really care for the lake water, I'll be honest, on the podcast, but she looks back now, she's 21, and she goes, I really enjoyed, just going out and bouncing around on the water. And one of the things that we had a rule with is, because you're on the water, we asked everybody to put their cell phones away. So the cell phones all got Ziploc baggies or whatever, and they all got put away in storage. And I sort of like that rule personally. There was a backstory to that we didn't have phones dinging. We got to spend 4 or 5 hours on the water, uninterrupted, having fun as a family. And so nobody had their cell phones out. Nobody was texting, taking pictures. My excuse was we just didn't want anyone's phone to fall in the water or get wet. But there really was a backstory to that it just made it cool that we just had fun. There was no other distractions. So this podcast, I just want to put it out there about if you're thinking about doing something with a family member or with a close friend, and it doesn't have to be in the shooting industry per se. It doesn't have to be at a long-range shooting school like what we have here. It could be a hunting trip. It could be a 2-day trip to Texas to shoot pigs. It could be, a hiking trip down some trail or a motorcycle ride. But what I'm trying to say is this really is a powerful effect on people. And I can watch people at the end of 3 days just not changing relationships, but bonding relationships. It's like the cement between the bricks. It creates those bonds that you mean something to me, that we actually got to spend a couple of times talking about, not just enjoying this sport or time together, but then you get to talk about other things in life, things that the barriers come down, the tensions come down. You're there enjoying yourself. And so there's a lot more freedom. You get to joke around a little bit more. There isn't all of these other things in life that have a tendency to cause these issues. So I know it's a long-range shooting, custom rifle building podcast, and maybe I'm out of line on this particular podcast, so we're not talking so much about any of those subjects. But the last classes that went through, it sort of touched a little soft spot that, how many times I've got to watch this happen and watch those relationships grow. And I got to watch two sons and a father from out west here. And gosh, I could see in the kids' eyes, this meant so much to them, to be here with their dad and to have their dad like, hey, Dad, I'm ready to shoot. You ready to watch? And the dad's watching and, oh my God, that was a great shot. And you couldn't peel the smile off the kid's face. That kid, this meant something to him. And so whether it's in the shooting industry, whether it's, volunteering somewhere, going, on a mission group with your church, whatever you decide to do. But take time to do that. It's so important. And I think we forget how important it really is to the younger generations coming up through. Same thing with older parents. If you have a brother, we had 2 brothers and an uncle come through. They're about the same age, and they had an absolute blast. It was amazing, and they were busy. They all had really high demanding careers, and so it was really awesome. I think for them, they might not have spent this much time together since they were kids, and you could just see that. Gosh, this meant something to both of them. So I just want to put it out there in the podcast. Might be a little bit shorter podcast than normal, but just go. Just whatever you have to do, make it happen. Whatever you have to scratch in the big scheme of life, this is what life was really about. Making and building these relationships, maintaining them, growing them, breaking down the barriers, enjoying something together. Missed opportunity after missed opportunity. And life eventually does. Everybody has their time on this planet until it ends. And when it's gone, it's gone. There's no coming back and taking it and a redo. And boy, those regrets have got to set for a long period of time. So I look at like these young kids coming through, and they will remember this until the day that they die. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And it's one of those things that it's about the experience, but also having that great experience with someone that they love and admire, and get to spend that uninterrupted time with them. That the dad's cell phone isn't constantly ringing or being called. They have to walk away and take a call. We don't get those moments very much anymore, especially with the way society is and work and demands and everything else and distractions in life. There are more distractions now than we've ever had to deal with. And so I think this is a great way to do it, whether it's a hunting trip, motorcycle trip, getting lost in the woods. And I always laughed at that one commercial. I don't know if you guys remember, where these guys were running around in a pickup truck, and they keep stopping the truck, and they're standing up on the running boards, and they're holding the cell phone way in the air, and then they're getting back in the truck, and they keep saying, yep, and then finally they get to one spot, and they go, nope. They had no cell phone service, so that's where they pitched their tent. I thought that was classic, because that is exactly what I would do. I mean, that to me was just... That was guys wanting to get away, get the phones turned off, and just enjoy some quiet time in their heads with their friends, which is awesome. So I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. I hope it inspire you to go out and do something. It makes for just awesome. Like, for example, last example, John Markwell is a good friend of mine. He went out on a prairie dog hunting trip. He goes out every year, and he invites me every year. This year I wasn't able to go out because we moved our business, and we have some camping stuff that wasn't quite ready yet. So between all of that, there was just no way to go. But I promised him next year, come hell or high water, if I have to drag the camper on my back to get there, I'm going to go spend a couple of days in that prairie dog field with him. A, I've never shot prairie dogs before. That sounds like a great time. But B, just to go spend time with my friend, and enjoy and talk and enjoy his companionship. And, I think that's what really life is all about. So I'm super looking forward to it. I've committed 100%, and it is going to happen if I have to walk to get there. So hope you enjoyed the podcast. Before we call it quits on this podcast, I do want to take a quick moment for some updates, and then also to thank TriggerTech. TriggerTech is a proud sponsor of the show as well. We do have lots of triggers here for you to try here at the shop and the showroom. So TriggerTech has sent us a really nice display that you can come and try the different triggers out. We have a 2-stage unit now, and we do sell the TriggerTech triggers here. They're a safe trigger. They're a simple trigger to adjust with one pin and self-cleaning. All these great things is why we like them so much and why we ask them to be part of our show. And so thank you, TriggerTech, for being an advertiser on the show. We also, if you purchase a custom rifle through us and we supply the stock, of course, you guys know that we hold one part. And so if you would like, we'll sell you the entire rifle minus the trigger, and we have a promo code that we can give you that you can purchase your trigger at a discount through TriggerTech when you need or decide to purchase it. So that's awesome. So thank you, TriggerTech. So you can stop over and see those guys at triggertech.com. That's triggertech.com. So I also want to give a quick shout out that our King of the Mountain is coming up. We have one slot in our first class still open, and we have a couple slots in our second class. They are kicking off at the end of August. And we do have one slot that just opened up for one of our August long-range shooting schools. So if you've been thinking about coming to our school and you'd like to join us, you can log on to our website online. It's wolfprecision.net, and you can register for that slot on there as well. So thank you so much, everybody, for taking the time to join us here. We really appreciate it, logging into the show. Our next couple podcasts, we are going to be working on getting some interviews in the industry, some interesting subjects that we want to bring on to the show and talk about. And so just keep an eye out for those. They will be coming up here every week as we post our new podcast up. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us here. My name is Jamie Dotson. I'm your host, and you are listening to the Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building Podcast.